I want to take you on a tour of Berlin, but I want to take you on a tour of 1920s Berlin, the Berlin I know from my studies of history of the period and the writing that I do when I write my stories. My name is Jason Collings, and I write the Mysteries, which are set during the Weimar Republican era, which runs from 1918 to 1933. And a lot of Berlin of that era is gone. It's been obliterated by the events of the late 20th century, um, particularly the events of the Second World War. But if you know where to look, you can still get a sense of it. And I want to take you on a tour of that. So let's start in Alexanderplatz because so much happens in Alexanderplatz during the 20s. Let's start in Alexanderplatz facing towards the northwest. To your left, you will see the world clock. But imagine there's not the world clock there. Imagine that there is a great plinth, and on that plinth is a statue of a pointing woman. This is the Berolina, the spirit of the city, and I think a great place to start. If you're looking to the northwest, you will see a big department store today. It's called the Galleria. But in the 1920s, it was Hermann Tietz and Co., one of the largest department stores in the city. If you now turn around 180 degrees and just peer past the run of stores, you will see a red building called Alexa, which is another shopping centre. But in the 1920s, this was the Red Castle, Police Presidium, the headquarters of the Berlin police. Now, let's turn back and let's turn to our left towards the west and walk down under the S-Bahn viaduct, down Rathausstrasse. If we continue down, you will see on your right-hand side there is the park with the TV tower. But let's ignore that for now and let's look the other way. Let's look to the left, where you will see the Rotes Rathaus, the Red Rathaus, which is the city hall, which has been there since the 19th century, largely unchanged. If we briefly veer to the right into the park, we will find the Neptunbrunnen, the Neptune fountain. And this, I would say, just take a note of, because this isn't where it used to be. It was moved there during the East German DDR. It used to stand outside the palace, which is where we're headed to next. So if we continue along Rathaus Strasse, which in the 1920s was called Königstrasse, King Street, you will come down past what is today Marx and Engels Forum, and you will cross over the bridge, over the Spree, and into what was Schlossplatz, the palace square. On the left-hand side, you will see a grand building. Today it is a music school, but it was the Maristall, the stables of the palace, and it is surviving. It's been damaged. If you look carefully, you can see where it's been patched, particularly around the corners. But unlike the palace, which is the grand building to the right, this is the original. The palace that stands there today known as the Humboldt Center, is a recreation built in the 1990s, and none of it is original. However, if we continue through the square, we will come to a piece that is original. But just pause in the middle of the square and imagine the Neptunbrunnen, the fountain, in the middle of the square, because that's where it originally came from. Anyway, let's progress down to ESMT Berlin, which is a technical college. It is a rather dull looking building from the 1960s. However, it has a completely incongruous imperial era gate on it, an entrance. And this was the entrance that was transposed from and moved from the original palace during the DDR period, because they wanted to demolish the old palace. But this particular gate had particular specific significance to them, because this was where Karl Liebknecht, the leader of the Spartacists, the German communists, on the 9th of November 1918, proclaimed a socialist republic in Germany. He'd been beaten to the punch very narrowly by Philipp Scheidemann, making a similar proclamation of a democratic republic from the Reichstag. But for the DDR, the communist East Germans, this particular piece of the building had special significance, and so they preserved it. And so this is the only piece of the original palace that survives in some kind of place. And it's not obviously where it used to be, but it is there. Now, let's turn right across the face of the palace and walk up. We're now on Museum Island, and we are heading up towards the Lustgarten, the pleasure garden. It is a large square, not particularly interesting looking in and of itself. It's just an area of grass, but the buildings around it are spectacular. You have the Alts Museum ahead of you with its grand colonnade. You have the Berliner Dom, the cathedral, over towards the east, and of course you have the northern facade of the Humboldt Center, representing the old palace. If at this point we turn left away from the museums, and if you have the time, go to the museums, they're great, but let's turn left over the Schlossbrücke with its fabulous statues of classical figures. And we are now entering onto Unter den Linden. And Unter den Linden is one of the great streets, the great boulevards of Berlin. It is the classic imperial boulevard where people would have gone to promenade, to walk, to be seen. By the 1920s, it's kind of lost some of its cachet, but it's still a really important street. And there are fantastic buildings there with real historical importance. The first of these is the first building you come to on the left-hand side. And that building was the old headquarters of the military in Berlin. That building is where General von Lüttwitz commanded the attacks on the Spartacists during the Spartacist revolt in January 1919, and it was his headquarters going into the Kapp Putsch as well. If we continue along, then we will pass what was the Crown Prince's Palace next to it on the left, and opposite on the north side of Unter den Linden you have the fabulous History Museum. But let's continue along, and past the Opera House, we come to a square. Turn into this square. It's called Bebelplatz. It has a very poignant memorial to the book burning that occurred under the Nazis. And continue through, travel down through until you come to Markgrafstrasse. Follow that down, and you will come out into one of the most beautiful squares in Berlin. And this is Gendarmenplatz. Gendarmenplatz has these two almost matching cathedrals. It's a wonderful place. It also has the concert house, which is itself a splendid building. But the two matching cathedrals are something truly special. And this square, I love this square. I actually placed one of the key locations in my books just on the south edge of this square, where the Hilton Hotel now sits. And I made this the location of the Brandenburg Hotel, which is key in many of the stories that I write. If we now pass through the square towards the west-hand side and turn north up Charlottestrasse, we can return to Unter den Linden. Turn left here and pass on down along Unter den Linden. Past some amazing buildings. You will also, including the absolutely vast Russian embassy. The western end of this was the original Russian embassy from the imperial period, but during the post-war period, the Soviets seized the western end of this block and turned it into a massive super embassy. However, Continue along here, and you will come into Parisaplatz. And Parisaplatz has some amazing buildings, including the really obvious Brandenburg Gate straight ahead of you. But look to your left, and you will see the Adlon Hotel. It's not the original Adlon Hotel. It is a respectful recreation of the Adlon Hotel, but the Adlon Hotel has been there since the imperial times and has throughout that time and um, through the 1920s and the 1930s, even through the 1940s, it was the Grand Hotel of Berlin. It hosted politicians, diplomats, heads of state, movie stars, anyone, everyone who was anyone would be seen at the Adlon Hotel. A great place to go, even to this day. Pass through Parisaplatz and under the Brandenburg Gate, and ahead of you in the far distance, you will see a tall spire, a tower, a pillar with a golden statue on top. This is the Siegessaal, the victory column. It was moved to where it is now by the Nazis, and an extra segment was added to it. It was originally in front of the Reichstag. And that's where we're going now. So turn right at this point and head up Ebertstrasse, named after the first president of the Weimar Republic, and you will come to the Reichstag. If you have the opportunity, visit the Reichstag. Incredibly important. As I said in one of my short videos, the Reichstag bookends the entire Weimar Republic. It's here that Philipp Scheidemann proclaims the Republic on the 9th of November, just beating Karl Liebknecht to it. And it is the burning of the Reichstag on the 27th of February 1933 that really seals the fate of the Republic. 4 weeks after the Nazis have come to power, they're not at that point really in dictatorial control, and the burning of the Reichstag gives them the reason, the justification for the enabling act, which gives them that authoritarian control that they then use to such disastrous effect. Let's turn around and let's head back. And I recommend taking time to pass through some of the Tiergarten because it's beautiful whatever time of year, and certainly worth a stroll through. So if we head south all the way down through the Tiergarten past the statue to Goethe, we will eventually come at the southern end of Ebertstrasse to probably the most important square in 1920s Berlin. This is, of course, Potsdamer Platz. I have a soft spot for Alexanderplatz, but I can't deny the importance of Potsdamer Platz. Almost nothing here survives from the 1920s, but just for one evocative small piece, you do see the traffic control column in the center, one of the first traffic control devices ever created. It now has lights. Originally, it had arms with stop go written on them. The square itself, immensely important. The location, Haus Vaterland, and many other famous buildings. Pass through and continue down Potsdamer Platz, heading south. And as you pass down Potsdamer Platz, it will change into Stresemannplatz, as Stresemannstrasse, I apologize. And you will eventually come to a ruined structure on the right-hand side. This is the remains of Anhalter Bahnhof, the facade of Anhalter Bahnhof. What remains is only the central section. The original was over 100 meters in width. And behind that, there are a series of display areas and parkland which encompass the vast scale of the original Anhalter Bahnhof. Worth a look. If you don't want to walk through the parks, just take the Mockenstrasse. That will then lead you down to the bridge, Mockenbrücke, which you can cross over, and you will see a building with an aeroplane on top, a DC-3 or C-47, in honor of the airlift. Um, this is the Deutsche Technik Museum. It's a great museum, but the reason that it's particularly worth noting is that it forms a significant part of what remains of the Anhalter Bahnhof. Behind the main building, you will find the old engine sheds. You will also find a part of the museum called the Spectrum. You don't have to pay to go in just to look at that from the outside. And you can see where the freight yards were. What is now the Spectrum was the freight terminal for Anhalter Bahnhof. Um, from here, if you walk up Luckenwalder Straße, which is just up along the canal and to the left, you will eventually come to Gleisdreieck. Gleisdreieck is one of the U-Bahn stations, and Gleisdreieck is on the U2 line, and that will then take you a couple of stops up, saving you a little bit of shoe leather and your feet, to Wittenbergplatz. And Wittenbergplatz is incredibly important if you want to get a feel for 1920s Berlin, because it's the only one of the U-Bahn stations which looks like it did in the 1920s. It was heavily damaged during the war, of course, but it has been faithfully restored and is a wonderful place. It's worth just going to have a look at what that station looks like. The ticket booths have been changed into food stalls or coffee shops, but the whole place looks like it did during that era, during the Weimar era. From there, come back above ground. You will find yourself outside Cadave, the incredibly famous department store in on Theresienstrasse. And for Theresienstrasse, continue up towards the Kaiser Wilhelm Church, the ruined church that has been retained in as a memorial. As you reach the church, on the right hand side, you will see a rather uninspiring shopping centre called the Europa Centre. This is the location of the Romanische Cafe during the 1920s, the incredibly famous culturally important cafe where artists, poets, writers, aspiring politicians all mixed, all shared ideas, all drank a lot of coffee. And there's nothing remaining of it now, although there's a small memorial museum inside the Europa Centre, which is sometimes open. But it's worth just noting that this is where it was. As you reach the Kaiser Wilhelm church, you can continue to follow the road around as it curves back towards the southwest onto the great shopping centre of Berlin, the Kurfürstendamm. By all means, follow it. And if you do follow it all the way down to the end, you will find at the end there is a park just on the right-hand side. In the 1920s, this wasn't just a park, although it was called Luna Park. This was an amusement park. And it had been an amusement park before the First World War, and it remained so during the 1920s, although gradually it became more and more and more decrepit. If you want to save on what is quite a long walk, I suggest you turn aside at the Kaiser Wilhelm Church, and you continue across towards the zoo. You will find the zoo just on the other side, and follow it around to Berlin Zoo Station. There you can get on board one of the S-Bahn trains and take the S-Bahn all the way through to Friedrichstrasse Bahnhof. At Friedrichstrasse Bahnhof, which is one of the few remaining operating stations from that era, although it's changed dramatically. Um, you can then jump on another train on the S2 line that will take you up to Oranienburger Strasse. Travel up to Oranienburger Strasse and come back above ground. You will see there two incredibly important and beautiful buildings. One of which has survived, although, of course, it's had to be rebuilt substantially following the bombings of the Second World War. Another of which has been completely rebuilt. The first is the post office. It was the Imperial Post Office and remained the centre of the post office during the 1920s. It's an amazing building. You look at it with its tiles and its incredible brickwork, and you don't immediately think post office. They really did post offices in a spectacular way back then. But just down the street, you will find the new synagogue. It is the new synagogue because the old synagogue was completely destroyed during the Nazi era. And the Jewish population, not only of Berlin, but of Germany and beyond, have rebuilt it as close to how it was as is possible, which is an incredibly powerful testament to their resilience and to their memory of those who were lost during the Holocaust. But if you then turn past the post office up to Polski Strasse and then bear right when you come to the junction, you will find yourself on Auguststrasse. Continue up Auguststrasse, past the Samurai Museum on the left-hand side, which is worth a look, by the way. Great collection. And you will come on the right-hand side to an open area with some seating and a couple of kiosks that sell drinks and food. But what you are looking at is the entrance to one of the quintessential 1920s locations in Berlin. This is Clarchen's Ballhaus. Clarchen's was founded in 1913 by Fritz Buhler and his wife Clara. When Fritz died relatively soon afterwards, Clara continued to run the Ballhaus. It's a dance hall, a place where you could go and get a drink, have some food, and you would dance. The dance hall is upstairs. The restaurant now is downstairs. And although it has changed over the years, it is in many ways very, very close to how it would have been in the 1920s. And what is more important is it is the last remaining dance hall of its type in Berlin. It has survived 5 different forms of government, from the imperial through the Weimar era, the Nazis, the communist DDR, and into modern unification Germany. And it is a wonderful place to visit and to just soak up the atmosphere. If you can go on a night where they have a performance or maybe dancing upstairs, I highly recommend it. If not, just go there, have a meal, have a drink, and enjoy. Because there, I think, in many ways, you get as close to the 1920s as it's still possible to get. In the last of the over 900 clubs of its type that existed in Berlin in the Weimar era. That is where I close my little tour. Take the weight off your feet, sit down, have a drink, and enjoy Clarchen's. Thanks very much. I hope you've enjoyed this tour, and if you like this kind of content, please subscribe for more.